we should think more like Paul. Because the way that we kind of sometimes project our resume and ministry can easily devolve into kingdom building.
Hey Scott, I'm going to read you some words that are drawn from a larger list of words.
Okay.
That are recommended words to be used for this task. All right, so I'm going to read you this subset of words from the larger list. All of these words were put together to be used for this task. You're going to tell me the task that these words are to be used for.
Oh.
Here are the words: achieved, exceeded, improved, succeeded, surpassed, excelled, accomplished, increased, maximized, and surpassed.
That is either a job evaluation or a resume.
A resume is exactly right.
Okay.
Those words were taken from a larger list of words that was entitled Resume Power Words.
There we go.
Yeah. That is someone who has not written a resume in quite a few years. May have actually composed his last resume ever. And the senior pastor of East White Oak Bible Church, Scott Burkle. My name is Treg Whitaker, and this is the Ask Scott podcast. Sunday you were preaching from chapter 6 of 2 Corinthians.
Yes.
And Paul is kind of putting together a little bit of a resume. As non-traditional as it may be, a resume nonetheless.
That's right.
Yeah, what you had to say on Sunday has sparked a few questions. Shall we dive in?
Let's go.
Yeah, good. In verse 3, Paul says that he doesn't want to put any obstacle up, that people might, miss the gospel or come to a wrong conclusion about him or his ministry. No obstacle. And you spent a little bit of time talking about Christians as hypocrites. And it made me think of this phrase, I would become a Christian if not for Christians.
Yeah.
Now, if somebody has that sort of attitude about Christianity, how might you respond? Give us some tips for how to respond to somebody who is open to Christianity if not for Christians.
Yeah. I'll approach it from three angles here. One is from the angle of the person. He may indeed have had some very bad experiences. And so to ask the question, well, what kinds of experiences have you had with Christians? And then to say, that's awful. I'm sorry. That's not what Christians are, And then it may be from another angle that they simply haven't met enough Christians to be able to introduce them to others. Say, oh, you need to get to meet my friends, And then the third angle would be, it's an invitation, isn't it? When the person says that, to be able to say, hey, I would like to spend more time with you. I'm not perfect, but I would like to show you what being a Christian really means and thinks.
Those are good. Those are good. Hey, if you appreciate the Ask Scott podcast, if you find it helpful or interesting, it would be an encouragement to Scott and I if you would click that like and subscribe button. Here's question number 2, also from verse 3 in chapter 6 of 2 Corinthians. Paul is talking about no fault in his ministry. But the Corinthians had found all kinds of fault in Paul's ministry. I'm wondering, is Paul here an example of how we ought to respond to being treated unjustly? Because there was so much unjust criticism about Paul and his ministry from the Corinthians. Is Paul a good example? What can we learn from Paul's response to being treated unjustly?
Yeah. Well, when he says no fault, he means no genuine fault. Obviously, there are people that are making kind of accusations and finding fault, but the fault isn't genuine. It's not real. I believe that Paul is a good paradigm for us in thinking about how do we respond to criticism or accusation. Generally, Paul's attitude was to just keep pressing on, okay? But there were times when the accusation was so wild-eyed or so impactful that he had to respond to it. In fact, in chapters 10 and 11 of 2 Corinthians, he's going to address some very specific criticisms that some of the folks at Corinth are making of him.
You know, we started out talking about this being a little bit of Paul's resume.
Yeah.
And he gets to this section where he lists all these things.
Yes.
They're not really resume power words,
No,
though.
they're not. No.
They're a very unusual way to commend himself to the Corinthians. This is not the typical way that people or ministries commend themselves, I don't think.
No.
Now, are they wrong in that? Should all ministries sort of commend themselves the same way that Paul has here?
Yeah.
Is this the standard for the way that we commend ourselves?
So let's think about this culturally first. As Americans, we're here in the United States of America as we're doing this. We are very success-oriented. So when you pick out the resume words, those were all very American-style ways of projecting oneself. So it's no surprise then when ministries are giving their annual report or whatever, they go, and we've maximized this, and this grew this much, and these many people were involved, and this much money was spent, and here's where all the money went, and it's doing amazing, wonderful things. Yeah. Where Paul's resume is, we were beaten, imprisoned, there were riots, labors, hardships, sleepless nights, and hungers, you know. And so what I would say is that we should think more like Paul, because the way that we kind of sometimes project our resume and ministry can easily devolve into kingdom building, you know, where we're saying, look at what we're doing, you know, rather than thinking about what our part is. We were only doing what we were told by our master to do, kind of the Luke 17 passage that I shared at the end of the service yesterday. So all that to say, I think we should be more like Paul.
So Paul talks about all these hardships as a part of his resume, as a part of him commending himself to the Corinthians. All these difficulties, trials, tribulations, right? And you know, most of us will never experience that. Again, we're in contemporary America. We're unlikely to experience the kinds of persecutions and trials that Paul did. Most of us will face nothing more than being made fun of. I mean, a mockery maybe will be made of our faith, our belief, whatever it might be.
Right.
And that can be paralyzing for us. I wonder, what sorts of advice might you give to someone who is paralyzed by the thought that someone might think less of me or I might be made fun of? If they want to be more bold for Jesus, how do they get there? This is a really good question. I would say one thing is something that happened on Sunday. We read the Word and we study it and we let the Spirit of God work in us. I don't know that there was anybody in our worship services Sunday that did not feel a strengthening by the fact of seeing Paul's example and his urging us to live that way. The second thing that we can do is pray. Say, Lord, grant me greater boldness to speak for you, to do things that are outside my comfort zone. And then thirdly, have people around you, build friendships with people who are bold so that iron can sharpen iron, you know. And then the last thing that I would suggest is that we just try to press a little bit further. It's a little bit like exercise, right? If you just press a little bit harder each time, it's amazing how that muscle grows. Our boldness muscle can grow in the same way. Thank you, Scott. Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Ask Scott podcast. You can find previous episodes on our YouTube channel. Just search at East White Oak. You can follow East White Oak Bible Church on Facebook and Instagram. We look forward to you joining us the next time Pastor Scott answers your questions about the Bible on the Ask Scott podcast.